Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all well. The world is treating you well. Everything is good, and you're all safe and happy. Be nice to know. I've had a reasonably good day, and I'm reasonably chipper. And here I am, less than a week again with the second stream, which, to be honest, I'm not even sure I was ever going to do the first one, but it seems to have come around again. For those of you who are new, hi, nice to meet you. If you could hit the follow button so you get some automatic updates and you know when I'm going to do something again, that would be great. I'm not asking for subscriptions. I'm not here for the money, and I'm not here to create a career out of this in the way that some people have. That's not my thing. I'm here to talk, and you'll probably find I can talk all day. But I'm here to talk about the things I like, and today again, it's BattleTech, the trading card game. A little old in the tooth as it is, but it's still a good topic of conversation. Okay. As ever, if you want to drop something in chat, if you've got any questions, please do so. I'll endeavour to have a read of it when I can. I seem to have got windows all over the place and screens and everything else, and I'm constantly flicking around them, which is why I'm probably staring off into the distance and not looking at the camera too much. But that's the way it is, I'm afraid, or that's the way I'm doing this while I kind of learn and get used to things. So, for those of you that saw last week or were possibly even present last week, we talked a little about the deck building element of Battletech. How to make a reliable deck or one that doesn't suck. And at the end of the stream, I put a message out there to anybody to say, if you're brave enough or big enough and brave enough and you want to put something out there for people to see, I'll happily give you a straightforward, honest, and reasoned opinion, or at least I hope it's reasoned, as to why I would include or not include any particular cards into that deck and or change any of the things in order to hopefully improve it, make it more reliable and maybe a bit more fun to play. And there was a gentleman who stuck his hand in the air and said, I'll bite. I'll go for that. I'll put my name forward and I'll send you a couple of decks. Um, and that guy was a guy called Ian Winters. So if you're listening or you're catching it later, he's here. Hi, Ian. Then credit to you for going the extra mile and putting yourself up there. You definitely deserve a gold star or a coffee or whatever it is. And if no one buys you one, then go and treat yourself because you deserve it. So Ian sent me two decks. He sent me a Ghost Bear deck, which I've got a few ideas for and a few things I'd like to talk about with that one. And he sent me a Raselhague deck, and Raselhague is quite off piste. Is probably the way to describe it. It's not played very often. It was played once or twice in a mechless format before a certain card was banned, which was disguised coordinates. And you don't really see it because it hasn't got a lot of units in it. To be honest, I'm not even sure there's any in the game. What it has got is two or three uniques figures, and therefore making the rest of the deck requires kind of generic inner sphere cards, and that when you compare it to some of the other inner sphere factions out there or themes, can restrict it. But anyway, makes no difference to me. It's a great deck, and hopefully I'll be able to impart some words of wisdom and a bit of knowledge, and you guys can learn from it courtesy of Ian. So thanks, Ian, and here we go. So I have three copies of Lackey open at the moment, mainly because I'm going to flick between a few cards and pull them across without disturbing the deck too much. And I'm going to go and open up Ian's deck. I love the way he describes this Ian's garbage Raselhague deck, which is quite an interesting way of describing things. Okay. Oh, that's the Ghost Bear one. Sorry, we want the Raselhague one. Where's it gone? Russell. disappeared. It's probably not on my list. So, or my recent list. Let's just open this up because I have saved a second version of it and make sure we get the right one. There it is. Okay, here's the deck. And there are two things that scare me straight away. No disrespect to Ian, but there are 51 cards, and I know that he submitted 60. So I've had to do a little bit of investigation, and if I can find the right folder, if you go and look in wherever you stored Lackey, I've got a separate version of Lackey that I use purely for the stream, and look in the Battletech plugin. This is the one for the League, so it's slightly different to the normal one, which will be called BT Tactics. And in the decks folder, you will see there are files here that end .deck. Those are the deck files, and one or two of them I've exported as a text file. Okay, so I'm going to open up the actual deck file itself because what's on the screen isn't what I'm expecting. And when I do that, I get a wonderful file full of all of this gobbledygook that's all kind of programmer language, XML markup-y and all this kind of rubbish. And I've played around with some of this and done some of this, so don't be too scared. But basically, don't worry about the codes. You look for the card name. There's a Cerberus MRV2, and each card is listed individually. So card 1 is a Cerberus, card 2 is a Cerberus. There are 2 of them, but because of the way the deck is stored, they are stored as individual lines of text. And looking at Ian's deck, is the 2 Cerberuses? Yes, there they are down the bottom there. So I've actually, before we started, had a bit of a look here, and I can see that down the bottom here there are 3 Warfans modified cards, and they're not on Ian's list. And there are a load of munitions support cards there, which again are not on Ian's list. So that's where our stray missing cards have come from. I'm not going to add them in now because we're going to tweak the resources anyway. So I just think we'll leave that until we get to that point. Okay, so here's the deck, and it's a big old list. And for some people, lists aren't the greatest thing to look at. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click the little cost header here, which is going to sort the entire deck by cost. So now you see we've got a mission at the top there, some 0 cost resources, going all the way down to this pretty chunky 9 cost Cerberus. Okay, so all the cards are in order, and then down the bottom middle, underneath the deck, we have a view tiled button. And I'm just going to click that, and I'm going to use my wheel on my mouse to zoom in and actually get my apologies for the fact that my stream has got me across this top corner. We'll do something about that in a minute or two. But it's a nice way to show the deck and also see all of the cards in that particular cost order, and you can get a bit of a visualization for it. So I know that there are 3 of this champion, which is a medium 253 Alpha 2 mech in this deck. There is 1 ambush. We've got a couple of annihilators. There's a Hansen's Rough Riders over there, a single combat. There are some, I think that will just get the 2 Cyranos in on the corner there. So we can start and see the whole deck. There is, I've got a bit of space, I can push that back a touch. We've got Harken Magnusson, we've got Red Jack Ryan, that's quite a weird one, you don't see him very often, and a few other bits and bobs on there. And I like some of the ideas that Ian's come up with here, but this suffers from, and no disrespect to Ian, beginner deck syndrome, for want of a better phrase, whatever you want to call it. There are a small amount of resources. You can see at the top here we have 3 of the blue logistics and 1 of the pink one. My advice is just keep them the same. If you're going to use the blue one, use the blue one. If you're going to use the pink one, make them all the pink one. Because that just makes it easy to track. And with the resources, the pink one is actually quite a rare colour. There are some blues in the other bits. So I often use the pink one, and if I can see that there are 5 or 6 in there, it's quite easy to spot that on the screen because you're looking for that big chewing gum, hubba bubba, strawberry flavoured bubblegum colour. And it's dead easy to see. Okay, we have a single politics, 2 tactics there. Not seeing much else in the way of tactics. What else have we got? Looks like the logistics are missing as well from this. And, oh, the wonderful weapons depot. Okay. Now, just for clarity, where are we? Where's weapons depot gone? Where's it gone? There it is. Yeah. Weapons depot gives you L and M. Okay. It's nice. But when you look at the actual structure and armor of it, it's a 3-3 instead of a standard resource 4-3, which means it's much easier to kill. And second, it costs. It costs 1 for that flexibility. And my personal opinion is, if I'm playing a game and a guy puts one of those down, whether it's Weapons Depot or something like Backing of the Grand Council or whatever else it is that's got a dual asset on it, I'm thinking, why are they running that? What do they want from that? Are they after munitions? Are they a little low on munitions? Are they a little low on logistics and they're running this to cover both bases? And for me, that becomes a target straight away. So if you're going to run them, then I would suggest think very carefully about that. What does it bring you? Is your deck much better to actually just have one of each extra resource and you cut something else and it's more reliable? Okay. So Ian's deck list is missing, I think it's 5 munitions and 2 or 3 war funds, which would arguably make it more reliable. But we are talking a politics, a tactics, logistics, and a munitions. We're talking 4 assets, which I would suggest is potentially too many. We could easily get that down to 3, maybe 2, depending on what we do with it. And what I'd also say is that you've got 1 politics card, but what cards require politics? So we have Red Jack over here, he requires politics. And we have Harkin here, he requires politics. And then we've got Airstrikes Close to Home, which is a 2-cost 6 politics buyout. With only 1 politics in the deck, we're going to pay for that. And that's quite a big payout. And then secondly, we've got It's a Trap, 3, with a 5 politics buyout. And it only triggers for every 2 counters above the top of it, which is going to get very, very expensive. If we haven't got politics on the table, then that's going to cost us 10 to get 1 mech affected by it, which is very, very expensive. So one of the things I would consider straight off is to remove It's a Trap and Airstrikes Close to Home. And you're going to ask, why have I left Harkin and Red Jack in? And the reason is the other card that's missing from this deck that I haven't mentioned is Task Force Serpent. And I know, having talked to Ian, if he drew Task Force Serpent, which says draw 2 uniques and draw 3 units of your choosing, he would go and pick Red Jack and he would go and pick Harkin Magnuson every time. And he would do and tap both of them and have a load of fun. And to be fair to Ian, I like this. I think this is a really inventive combination. I'd never, well, I might have seen it, but I can't remember it, and I wouldn't have thought of it. So credit where it's due. Red Jack says untap a resource card an opponent controls, gain control of it until the end of your turn. Harkin then says scrap it. Okay, and draw 2 cards. So you've got a draw engine and you've got scrapping one of the other guy's resources, which, if you can pull it off, is very powerful. My issue with this is it's only 2 uniques. You're increasing the chances with Task Force Serpent, and I know that in the league, Task Force Serpent, if you look at the rules, it's been banned. But for the moment, I like it so much, and I think it gives the deck a bit of Ianness, for want of a better phrase, and a bit of identity. Then I think I'm going to leave it in. That might surprise a few people, but I'm going to leave it in, and when we finish with this, I'm going to say to Ian, go play it, go have some fun with it. If you like it, keep it. If you don't like it, kick it out. And that's the same for the whole deck. You can change it. You can do what you want with it. You can make it yours. This is kind of how I would go about doing it, but that doesn't mean that that's a perfect fit for you. You go ahead and go for it. And you should have seen some comments from Ian. Thanks for the advice. That's all right. That's what the whole thing's about, mate. You should have seen what I originally called it. Yeah, okay. We'll try and keep this reasonably pleasant. Task Force Serpent is missing from the list. Yeah. BDS is very, very fair. BDS. What are we talking about with BDS? All right, I'm struggling with BDS. Not to worry. Okay, so we've got a couple of ideas. Now, again, having talked to Ian, one of the other things he was trying to pull off is contract with Hansen's Rough Riders down here, which he saw on a stream when Gustav, myself, and Travis were talking about some of the cards. And Gustav had this combination with Hansen's Rough Riders where you can tap it, put a unit from your hand onto the table, and provided the groups are equal, you would have an additional groups are equal at the start. You would have an additional mech, and then the end run card, which is play when you've got more mechs than the other guy, comes into play, and you hit the stockpile. Yeah, it's a nice combination. The mech goes back in your hand, but again, Hansen's Rough Riders has got a huge. What have we got? 6 politics buyout on top of a big 5 cost. And one of the advice or pieces of advice I would give would be to dump that out. Um, you've only got 1 politics, and you're going to struggle. As we saw last week, 1 politics in a deck of 60, you're getting a 1 in 60 chance of drawing that roughly each term. I know statistically it goes down with the number of cards and it will increase, but the chances of drawing a single card from your deck throughout the game are quite small, and that's why we often run multiples of a number of cards. Yes, there are 2 think tanks in there for flexibility, but I'm not convinced. You might go with it. Fine. I'm not convinced personally. Okay. So my first thoughts are to take out airstrikes. It's a trap. Contract with Hansen's Rough Riders. End run. I think we could leave that in at the moment. I think you could still use it. It's still a viable card in this deck. Whether if you want a push card, something to get damage through to the stockpile, you want to go for something that's a little different, like say Heroic Sacrifice, in order to have that kind of end game finisher combination, then that's definitely a possibility. End run's another card you could use either. Personal preference. So I'm going to leave that there for the moment. Okay. So that's just having a little look at the commands and some of the resources. We've only got the end run mission. Let's have a little look at the units that we've got. We've got a couple of little Cyrano helicopters here, 1-1s, which, okay, they're pretty fragile. They've got VTOL, so you can ping the stockpile every now and again for 1 damage, but in reality, there's only 2 of them. Okay. We have an ammo truck, which is quite an interesting card. I haven't seen that one for a while. It allows your mechs to be or not to deplete, but there is quite a restriction on it. If you read the card, it says if ammo truck is untapped, alpha strikes don't deplete your blocking mechs. So that's only your blocking mechs, so you've got to be attacked, and that's quite restrictive. And tap to reload a depleted mech straight away after a mission, and therefore you untap it next turn. So it removes the depletion effect effectively. The problem with this card is that it's a command card and it sits on the table. And likewise, as soon as that's there, that's got target written all over it. And as a 0-3, I'm just thinking, oh, that's Dasher bait. I've got a fast Dasher Prime. You've put that on the table. You've got a couple of slow mechs. I know. I'm going to pick it off, and I'm not even going to take any damage from it. So it has its weak spots. There are alternatives which we'll have a look at in a minute. mentioned Weapons Depot. The Assassin, 1 cost, 113 jump. Okay, fine. It's a 1 damage. It's a fast blocker. It doesn't deal with a lot of the clan stuff like our Dasher or our Koshi, but it is a fast blocker and it generally survives. My issue is there's two of them, and for reliability of a deck, even with the league rules, which we'll talk about in a minute, it's probably a little low. Staging ground, 3 counters on one of the command cards under construction. I suspect these are in place with either our airstrikes or contract with Hansons, or it's a trap in mind to be able to build them up. Yes, they're nice, but where I think this deck struggles is it's quite diluted. You've got your it's a trap thing, you've got your airstrikes thing, you've got your Hanson's Rough Riders combination, and a little short of politics, and it's maybe trying to do too many tricks and have too many combinations, and in doing so, the general populace of the cards and the reliability is decreased. I would much prefer to see more like 4, 5, or 6 of the smaller, cheaper starting blocking mechs to be there. Just because of the stream, I'll move this across. We've got a couple of sharpshooters which allow you to alpha strike and not take any of the depletion effects and give you +2, which is a very nice bonus for quite a cheap card, in all honesty. One with 2 tactics buyout, it's quite powerful for that. And there are a couple of Centurion A's, again with Alpha Strike. These are the straight 2 cost version with no buyouts, and are a pretty good choice, I think, for this deck. It's running L and M and a bit of this, that, and the other. These coming out early without any particular asset requirement just means you need assets on the table. And again, my issue here is there's a couple of them. The ubiquitous black market connections, we've dealt with that before. Recycle any of your junk cards into that and get back what you want. It's probably a staple in every deck. Then we have another good solid choice in the Spider, and this time we've got 4 of them, which is great. Good to see. Dasher blockers and killers, trades 1-1, and it's a free deploy. And with the revised version, which is a straight 2+1L, if you're running logistics, you can put these out quite nice, and they're pretty good early game. Falcon Hawk at 2+2M, it's okay. It's a 063, so 3 damage for 2 cost is pretty decent. It suffers a bit. It doesn't quite have the armor of its 2 cost or 3 cost medium counterparts like Centurion or some of the other things in there. So you're paying a little off of sustainability for damage, but it's not bad if you can keep it on the table. The 3 is definitely a good buyout. Single combat, yeah, I know Ian said he put that in because we said it was a good card. Okay, fine, good choice, but how are you going to use it? And that's my question. The Grasshopper 283 jump for 4, it's okay, but you'll find that there are 273 with an option for extra damage somewhere. Um, Maybe's a better choice. Improved construction facilities, I'm guessing, is another staging ground. Staging ground into this, and staging ground to put lots of counters on something. So okay, again, there's only 2, and with 3 war funds, are we more likely to draw logistics or want to use war funds to pick up something else? Um, I'd say try it, but I suspect that's the case. And then we have, as we used to call it, the mushroom. French for mushroom is champignon, so this is the champion. It's a 253 alpha 2 for 4 cost and medium, which you might just think is a little pricey. If it was 3, I would say great. But it's 2-5, okay. 3 alpha 2 with a sharpshooter on does 7, which is quite nice. Um, I've got mixed feelings about this. I think it's a little too easy to kill. If it was a 2-6 or if it was a 3 cost, I'd be a lot happier with it. Okay. Moving on, we have Ambush. Again, one of those cards that people think is great, and scrap Ambush when it's revealed. You may activate Ambush when an opponent attacks, deal 1 damage to each attacking mech. Okay, fine. But for 4 cost, I think I'd rather have another unit which blocks things. And 4 cost, I could probably get 3 or 4 out of that mech. It's got an overheat option, and I play it carefully. I can get it to damage something and hang around and then damage again. And it may well be that over the course of a couple of battles, I can get 6 or 8 damage out of it, which on the ambush card could be anywhere up to eight counters over the top of it. So I think I'm not a great fan of the ambush card. Okay. Bandersnatch, interesting choice. Quite like this. It's a slow. It's 2-7. It's 4 damage, which is pretty good for 5 cost. Not too shabby. Alpha 2, so that 4 can go up to a 6. You've got a missile and you're playing munitions, so that could be another 3 on top of that. And if you put a sharpshooter on this, then that's quite good damage. 2-7's a reliably strong chassis, and the base 4 damage is good. I don't think I'd probably put this in a normal deck, but I can see why it's here, and I think it's a good inclusion. And in the revised deck that I'm going to put your way in a few minutes, then I keep this. I think this is a worthy mech to go and bash the hell out of somebody else with. And then we have the LBX Granddaddy, the AC10 Granddaddy, depending on what you play it with. The good old Annihilator. 3-7. Maybe it's a little fragile for a 7 cost unit, especially when you compare it to some of the other things kicking around. The 5 damage is nice, but where you've got Alpha 4 on top of that getting to 9, and with a sharpshooter 11, then that's something that's going to hurt. Either it's going to hurt your stockpile or hurt whatever you try and get rid of it with. And if you can get a few of these on the table with the right pilot on it, then you're in a good place. And then finally, the good old Cerberus 378 for 9 cost and logistics. Fine, long range 2 on it. It kicks out 8. Again, it's a painful unit. I think my thoughts here are we've got 2 Annihilators, we've got 3 Bandersnatches, we've got the Centurion, we've got the Champion. We've only got 2 pilots that can utilise that, and maybe the ammo truck if it sticks around. So I'd be thinking I'm going to try and rationalise those units, maybe streamline them a little more, and also probably increase our pilots and maybe our depletion capacity, because that's going to be a problem. If we're stuck without it and we deplete a unit, then it can just get attacked. It's fair game. It's going to get wiped out by whatever. It's going to sit there like a sitting duck, and it can't fight back. Yeah. Okay. So this is the deck that Ian gave me, and I'm not going to rip it to pieces because I think that's unfair. I think there's some nice ideas on here. I'm going to take out what I would remove. I would take out ambush. I would take out it's a trap. I would take out the Cyranos because I don't think they're durable enough. I would take out airstrikes. I think single combat is potentially worth keeping. It might go into the sideboard, because if I've got a Bandersnatcher and Annihilator with a sharpshooter on it and I single combat, then I can probably single combat and kill a lot of things. So I'd be tempted to keep that in there. I think the weapons depot is definitely going to go. Think tank logistics, yeah, I'd tweak the logistics so they're all the same. Red Jack we said we were going to keep. I'd probably change the assassins. I'm not sure if I keep the staging ground. It's good, but I don't think if it quite has the focus. So anyway, that's my initial run through, and I know I've taken half an hour doing that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip over and show you what I did with this deck, and where I ended up. And Ian has seen this, and we've pushed it backwards and forwards a couple of times, and he actually came up with a couple of really good suggestions, which I've put into this the second version of this deck, and here it is. Okay, so again, I'm going to use the view tiled option, and I'm just going to get that in on screen. Yeah, just about. Okay. So what you see now is we have, and I've kept the colours the same. I've kept blue this time for logistics. I've got this kind of orange for munitions, and this kind of mauvey tactics, which means I can easily distinguish the colours of the cards. So they're easy for me to see now. I've kept the two think tanks just to be on the safe side. So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 7 logistics. We've got 4 tactics, 4 munitions, 2 think tanks, and I think yeah, 3 war funds in there. Okay, we've still got Red Jack, and we've still got Harkoon, just so Ian can play with his lovely combination and pull it off. Okay. And instead of the ammo truck, I went for access to extra munitions. And if you can just give me a second to pull up the right things, I will be able to compare the two for you. So here's the original ammo truck. Deplete, it's a sight. Okay, it stops the depletion for defending mechs. Access to extra munitions is slightly different. It's a 2-3L card. It's an enhancement that you play on a mech, and in this case, the first thing it says is draw a card, so it replaces itself in hand, which is always good. Play it on a mech. That mech does not deplete when using Alpha Strike, and you get a free deployment. So this prevents Alpha Strike on your mech. So the idea with this particular card is that you could play it on any of the units that you want. You could play it on the Bandersnatch. You could play it on the Annihilator. I think I might be tempted to maybe favour the Bandersnatch. My reasoning is that I might want to. I don't know. I might favour the Annihilator. Putting it on the Annihilator means I can alpha for 9 each time. Putting a sharpshooter on the Bandersnatch means I get to 7 each time, and that works pretty well. So again, you can put it where you want. I think it'll work on most things. I would try and put it on one of the units that's got the bigger alpha. You'll have more effect that way. Okay. So what have I included as well? Well, we still have the 4 spiders. Great pick they were. I've kept 3 Falcon Hawks, mainly because the spiders have got an L buyout and the Falcon Hawks got M. I think if you're going to tweak your mechs, then maybe the Falcon Hawk is possibly the one to drop and pick something else. I've upped the Centurions to 4. For some reason, I thought the limit on this league was 4, but that was the last one. It's 5. You might decide to drop the Falcon Hawks altogether, all 3 of them. Maybe put another Centurion in, put another Bandersnatch in, maybe put another one of these in. And this is a league playable card. It's a Renegade HPG design, and without being too rude, it's mean. It's absolutely gross. It's a revised Hunchback at 172, and it's got Alpha 3 on it, which is just gross. There is no 2-cost card with that level of stats in the game. You can argue this is a lot of power creep, and it's undercosted and overpowered, and I think there's a good case for both of those. But it is legal, and I suppose the idea of the league is to try some of these out. But if you put a sharpshooter on that, then that's 2 plus 3 plus the sharpshooter 2. That gets to 7 damage for a 2-cost mech and a 1-cost sharpshooter. That's really, really powerful. That's really cheap cost for an awful lot of damage. 3 resources for 7 damage is crazy. You think about an aerospace fighter mission where it's 4-5p for 5 damage. It's literally a ratio of 1 damage per 1 counter. And then for these two, you're looking at 3 counters, 3 resources for 7 damage. It's double. It's crazy. Okay. And the other card I've put in is a fast blocker, the Locust, which is a straight 1 cost, which again is really cheap for a dasher blocker stroke killer. If you look at this Locust at 1, and it's got AP, so it does 3 to the stockpile, and it's a 1 cost. Okay, it's not a free deploy, but it's a 032. Now compare it to the Spider at 2 cost with 1L, which is a 032 free deploy jump. That again is just crazy. You know, I mean, with that in that legal, I would be surprised if anybody played Clan, or at least Clan with a dasher anyway, not dash deck against that. So there are 4 of those in there. Um, the ubiquitous black market, the Falcon Hawks, the access to extra missions, or munitions, and our sharpshooters. Because we've got free deploy cards with our spiders and the access to extra munitions, although it replaces itself, I've added 2 hidden reserves so that you can draw additional cards. You put the spider out, you're going to play 2 other cards alongside with it, so effectively you're going to lose a card from hand. So I've put 2 of those in. They're logistics based, which you've got, and that allows you to top your hand up when you need it. And then instead of the end run, and I mentioned heroic sacrifice earlier, and heroic sacrifice in this deck is well worthy. You know, annihilator, sharpshooter, 9 straight through to stockpile, or it's even more than that, isn't it? It's 11 through to the stockpile. That's really powerful. That could be a game end. So there is a final push there. Oh, additional 2 damage to its target. You can push that through. But if you could easily turn that into heroic sacrifice, and then there is this card which this is pretty crazy, and it's a normal card. So this is front-loaded supply lines, which says each of your mechs gains Alpha Strike +2 attack. Now that is a separate Alpha Strike on top of the one for the mech itself. So if we look at a Bandersnatch, it's got Missile 1, Alpha Strike +2. If you play front-loaded supply lines, it gets Alpha Strike +2 on top of the Alpha Strike +2. So you can Alpha Strike it for 4 more. However, when you read Sharpshooter, it says whenever a mech piloted by a Sharpshooter uses an Alpha Strike, it gains an additional +2 attack and does not deplete. So you can nominate or declare both Alpha Strike options and get +2 on each. So this Hunchback is a 2 Alpha 3 with the Sharpshooter, okay, which gets you to 7. If you play front-loaded supply lines, it gets another Alpha 2 and the Sharpshooter 2 triggers as well. You can get an 11 out of that Hunchback. With your Annihilator at 5 damage with 4 Alpha, you get another 2 Alpha, so that's 11, plus another 4 out of your Sharpshooter. That's 15. That kills a Daishi. Daishi's at 411. So that will deal with absolutely anything in the game, pretty much. You might lose it against Widowmaker because you get -1 attack or something. But that's just gross, without being too rude. Okay, I would definitely drop a Falcon Hawk for one of those hunches. Yeah, sure. Ian, it's your deck. You do what you want with it. I think I worked on league rules being 4 cards. I think you've got 5. I think I would arguably drop all 3 Falcon Hawks and I might be tempted to drop in munitions, because the only other cards that need munitions are my Bandy Snatch, good old Bandy Snatch, very English phrase, Bandy Snatch, and my Annihilator. Everything else is logistics, and we want a bit of tactics for our sharpshooters. Um, we can also, or I've also put advanced manufacturing techniques in here, mainly for the logistics buyout, but also if you can get to 5, you can tap this and it will get you to 7. It gives 2 bonus counters, which means you can probably get your Annihilator out a little early. And because it provides an asset, you can war funds for it. So you can have 3 or 4 assets on the table, you can war funds and go and get this, pay 1 for it, and then the following turn you can get your Annihilator out slightly early potentially. So I think if I was tweaking this for a bit more optimization, and my intention was never to optimize this completely, it was to turn it into something from where it was that would give a good game to most people, and be a little more focused, have a proper curve, and have a lot of synergy. So if I was going to tweak this, I'd probably take the Falcon Hawk out. I'd put another Hunchback in. I think I'd go with a Heroic Sacrifice, because that gives me options about which mission. Am I going to Heroic Sacrifice? Am I going to Final Push? Am I going to front load it if they get wind of what you've got up your sleeve there? So they're kind of which one's going on here, and it makes them think. And then you've got a chance that they might make the wrong decision. You could even go more with this deck if you wanted. If you're happy to give up on Harken and Red Jack, then I would go with another sharpshooter and maybe another mission, to boost that up. Um, but that's for you to do, Ian. You've got a deck here now that I feel is a lot more focused and will be a lot more reliable. When we look at the list here, you can see that on the support there's 7 logistics, 4 tactics, 4 munitions. There's 2 think tanks in there. There's 2 black market and there's 3 war funds. Wherever they've gone, there they are. So that should give you a lot of reliability. That's for a 17, 18. That's actually 25 resources, I think, if my maths is right. So that will give you the reliability that you were struggling with before, because you probably only got somewhere in the region of about 15 resources and could get screwed. So those are my thoughts on what about Overrun instead of Heroic. Uh, yeah. Okay. This is a good question and a common one. And we'll have a look at Overrun. Okay. Now, some people love Overrun. Some people think Overrun is amazing, and some people are not the greatest fans of it. And I would say, and being very honest with you, I'm a convert. I used to run Overrun with when I used to play against a few people that I used to play with a long, long time ago, particularly a guy called Andy Gwillam, and he would always chump block. And whenever he chump blocked, I would have an overrun. I played a deck with 4 or 5 overruns in, and it just happened, and bam, he attacked, he blocked, he died. I came back again, which was great. But what happens if I can't kill it? What happens if I don't block? What happens if he blocks with everything and wipes me out, and I've got nothing to play my overrun on? Okay. So when you're in a competitive environment, you tend to find that 2 things happen. People block and everything dies, or people block and you die, or they don't block, because they're not going to sacrifice mechs if it means you get an advantage. Overrun is arguably a greed card. And the reason it's a greed card because I attack and you block, you chump block, you die, but then I untap and I get to attack again. And therefore I'm getting 2 for the price of 1, which is good value, obviously. But it's one of those more it makes the game shorter because it's a win more card effectively. So you can run overrun, and I would say to you, put some in, play it, see how it goes. Okay, if you like it, keep it. Okay, I suspect that as you go up the tiers of level of play, it will become less and less useful. But by all means, go for it. I'm not going to discourage you. It's a good question. In the right game, it's a great card. In the wrong game, sorry, it's a dead weight in your hand. I think I'd rather have something that does utility. I mean, I'd say pushing the envelope +3 one way or the other makes no difference whether I'm attacking or defending. Overrun works when I attack, he chump blocks. Okay. Any more questions? I think we're all good. Spider for the last Centurion for the last one, yeah. Overrun instead of heroic, we've done. Okay, cool. So, if everybody's happy and nothing else is coming on, then I'm going to move onwards and we're going to look at the other deck that Ian sent me, which was, and again, I suspect this had a slightly different name originally, Ian's Garbage Ghost Bear deck. Okay, so I'm going to choose that, and whoa, thing that scares me about this, the big list. One of this, one of that, one of the other. No offense, Ian, but it worries me when I say one of this, one of that, or the other, unless there's a real theme to the deck. So again, we're going to look at the tile mode, and we're going to see what's happening here. Get me out of the way. Okay, so we have a couple of unopposed, which is a useful mission for upping damage, and I suspect looking at those that yeah, here we go. We've got Bjorn in here. So you've got the unopposed combination with another +5 from Bjorn. Note that unopposed says base attack, and Bjorn gives it +5. So unopposed doesn't double the 5; it just doubles the base of the mech. The wonderful trial of grievance, 4 assembly, 4 tactics, 1 logistics, our lovely weapons depot that we've talked about again, and a couple of repair facilities. Okay. Now, at first glance, repair facility looks quite good. It provides assembly. You can tap it for a resource. You can tap it on top of the tap for assembly to repair another damage counter off a unit. So that's quite nice at keeping things alive. But there are 2 issues. If you remember when I said with overrun, people either die, block, or they don't, things tend to really, really die horribly, or they tend to just not go into battle at all. So the usefulness of repair facility for me is somewhat questionable. Yes, it's a source of assembly, but it's a 0.3 assembly cost anyway. So if you're struggling for an assembly, this isn't going to help you because you're going to have to pay 3 to put it on the table. And I think, to be pure and honest, I'd just rather have another assembly. It still lets me repair one. If the mech's not dead, it's probably not going to matter whether it's got 1 structure left or 2, to be honest. So I think my initial thoughts are to possibly replace those with normal assemblies. Okay, I think I know what's going on here. We have the lovely inside job, so you can't be blocked, and an unopposed. So it looks like a nice little combo there to get something straight in. And attack the stockpile and do lots of damage. A couple of Koshi Primes. Okay, nice and cheap. Reasonable unit. A couple of Sahama Mech Warriors, which do an additional +2 initiative and attack in battle. Okay, the Remembrance. Not sure what this is for. It's got a politics and a tactics buyout. We've got 1. In fact, we haven't got a politics that I can see easily. So we're paying the buyout on that to start with, so that's going to cost us 4. We've got some tactics, and basically it gives me a little bit of additional damage where I want it. I think I'd just rather have another unit. think I'd rather have another mech on the table than the remembrance, maybe. Okay. Ooh, Gladiator D. Yeah, I think I know where this is going. Inside job, Gladiator D, unopposed, 18 to the stockpile, maybe? Something like that. Okay. Nice thing with Gladiator D, no asset buyout. It's pricey at 11 though. And apart from a couple of improved construction facilities down here, we've got nothing to really boost that. So it's going to be slow and painful to get it on the table. We'll think about that. A couple of black markets. Okay, no problems. And our lovely Aletha. +1 initiative, +1 attack, and prevent up to 3 damage to a mech piloted by Aletha. Use that if it's fast or moderate and only during a mission. So basically, she's giving that unit 3 armor, which well, stick that. Oh, it won't go on the Gladiator D. The Gladiator Ds are slow. We got any mediums? Oh, 6 armor on a man of war wouldn't be too bad. 4 armor effectively on a Grendel wouldn't be too bad. You could overheat that and not take any of the damage. Okay, so she's pretty good. She's a pretty strong card. 3 Dasher Primes and Caught in the Hanger. This one, I must admit, surprised me a little. Caught in the Hanger says, scrap when it's revealed. You can attack another mech that your opponent controls regardless of speed. So yeah, okay, fine. But generally, you've got some fast mechs here. You've got Gladi D. I'm not sure why you want this. You've got fast mech coverage. You're going to send the slow one across and thump them with it. You're going to force them to block. There's going to be a clash of metal and an almighty explosion somewhere along the line. So I'm not sure why that's there, and I think that it's a bit of a distraction, especially when you've got single combat in the deck. I'm assuming that single combat is going to combo with the Soul Harmer, so you're going to get +3 on most things. Stick it on something like the Gladiator, and all of a sudden it's 12. You can kill pretty much most things in the day. Caught in the Hanger is to kill VTOLs. Yeah, okay. Maybe stick a Rocky Gorge in that, normally scares the crap out of them. Dragonfly Prime, reasonably good choice. A, M, and T. We haven't got any munitions. Are we on a small deck list? We may have munitions in there as well. Okay, so the deck list is a little short. Okay, 1 Hanky Prime. Nice little ECM on there. Saves a lot of damage on mechs. Bjorn, we've mentioned, if we can get him on the right mech, then he can be quite painful. Whenever I look at Bjorn, it always looks like he's got a dodgy ponytail because the Ghost Bear symbol out the back looks like he's got a white fluffy ponytail sticking out there or some feathers in his hair. But hey ho, oh, he's got a bit of a beaver tail as well, by the looks of it. So, Koshi B, I find Koshi B a bit expensive personally. A 044 for 4. It just dies too quick. I think my personal preference would be to take that out. If you want fast blockers, then I think I'd rather go with more hankies. You got effectively it's a 143 with jump, whereas this is a 044 with jump for 1 extra. So I think I'd probably drop those for hankies, or even more dragonflies. We've talked about the improved construction facilities. The dragonflies are a good Ghost Bear unit and they're fast. Uh, Galahads, I quite like Galahads. I think they're quite reasonable for what they are. It's just AMT, and I'm not sure what M we're running, and they're slow. I think they're a quite reasonable draft unit. The other Dragonfly, for the cost, the B is 1A, whereas the C is 2A, and the B overheats, and the C has AP. I would take the B every time. The reason being that I can overheat in battle and get extra 1. AP only applies at targets. If I'm through on the target, I can choose the overheat. So I think the B is better than the C until you run out of Bs and then you put a C in. And also it's an extra asset A buyout. So I'd probably switch those over from C's to B's. Man of War. I know a lot of people like the Man of War, but I just okay, it's durable. It's a 3/7. It's 4 for 5. It just it needs something for me. If it got jump or overheat 1 or something other like that, I'd probably love it. It's a bit vanilla ice cream. You know what you're getting, but it's no frills. Maybe it's personal opinion. You might like it. It's fine, not a problem. Go for it. A couple of Dragonfly A's and the big chunky Grendel on the top there. Again, we're not sure where the M is on this. Gladiator C. Now we've got a 310 6 for 8 or a 310 9 for 11. This one's got Alpha Jump. Why it's got -2 attack? I think that's probably a misprint. And Missile 1. And then we've got another one of those. We've got 2 Gladiator C's at 8 cost. So which one do I go for? Do I have a Grendel, which can kill a resource and is fast? Or do I have a more durable Gladiator, which can't kill a resource on its own? Might be one of those good old bullet sponges. Although, as you point out, yeah, you can gargoyles with single combat, so you combat combining single combat with Man of War and Soul Harmer for 7. Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. So, what would I do with this? I would get rid of Weapons Depot. I would take out Caught in the Hanger. I think the Dasher A, which I didn't really mention. I don't know why I'm not just running a Dasher Prime and upping the number of assembly. This does practically nothing. It's a 0-2-1 with anti missile, and it's going to die horribly. I think I'd just go for the Prime. At least you get for two resources, you get 3 damage out of it, which I think is a much better deal. I think the Remembrance has definitely got to go, and I think we're going to tweak a few of the units. I think we keep Aletha. I think we keep Bjorn. I think the single combat's valid. I think we need a bit of an engine to get our bigger units out. Okay, here we go. This is what I came up with. This is what I had a look at. This is version 2. And here we go in tiled mode. And again, you can see there's a lot more of similar cards. I'm on the 4 limit again, not the 5 limit. So again, you could tweak this. So we kept the unopposed. I've added a couple of missions in. I've added a couple of think tanks, although I think they might have been there anyway. The card I've definitely added in is double overtime. And this is legal. Scrap when revealed. Reveal one of your units under construction and double the number of counters on it. Now that's powerful because if you've got a 10 cost mech, you only need 5 counters on it and a double overtime. If you've got a 12 cost mech, you only need 6 counters on it and a double overtime. So this is the short route to getting big mechs out without going through all of the clan merchant cast free resources, tap 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 everything, put counters all over the place. So this is the other way to do it. And what you'll see is we've kept an awful lot of assembly and an awful lot of tactics, and literally apart from 3 war funds and the 2 think tanks, all the other resources have gone. So we've gone for an AT deck purely. To complement our 4 Dasher Primes, I've put in 4 Koshi D mislinks. This is really silly, but I put the D in because I like the picture and I hate the Prime, and they've got exactly the same stats. I like the picture on the D, I hate the picture on the Prime. Simple preference. You could possibly drop a couple of those for dashers with the resources on there. I think you need 6 total. So I would maybe drop 1 for a dasher and maybe 1 for something else. Keep 7 or maybe keep it at 8. Your choice. And then we are on to more Hankyu primes. The ECM really important here because it stops that Dasher dying on 2. It takes 3 to kill it and 4 for the Koshi. So the ECM on this is quite powerful and they're all fast. So we've got some fast blockers and some survivability on top of Aletha's ability. And the other thing I would say remember with Aletha is medium mech. And we'll hold that in your mind for a second. Bjorn stays in, single combat stays in, the improved construction facilities stay in and give us some L. And then we go with the Dragonfly Bs. I've changed the C over to the B. That's my preference. If you want something else, I've kept a couple of C's. And then there's a couple of D's. Again, you could swap a C out and put a B in there. You could swap the other C out, maybe go for another D or go for another Hankyu probably, just to keep your curve low. So you'll be able to put out a load of cheap mechs in order to block and cover things and blink away at the other guy's stockpile, whilst you work on building your monster and then hitting it with a double overtime to get it out quick. And when it comes to our monsters, we have 3 choices basically. We have our original Gladiator D, which with no buyout at 310.9 is pretty solid, deals pretty good damage, and if you want to post it, then yeah, it's going to hurt. Okay. Then we have another option, which is the Nightjaya Prime, which has an assembly and a tactics buyout. It's 2.9, but it's a 10 overheat 1. And again, an unopposed on that is really going to hurt. So, okay, quick question. During my game against Chester, I had a Dasher Prime, a double overtime, and Bjorn in my hand. I dumped all my resources onto the Dasher, double overtimed it, then used the box power to give it +3 attack. Next turn, when Bjorn went on the Dasher and played an inside job to do 10 to his stockpile. Okay, nice little combination there. Okay, I think it's an error on the Glad C. Yeah, and I have a soft spot for those Counter-Strike dashes. Yeah, I think a lot of people do. Okay. So, sorry for that. Just checking the questions. Glad D, yes, we've talked about that. Nightjaya Prime, another alternative, probably the top end. But the other one I'm going to suggest, and this is legal for the league play, and is Ghost Bear viable? It's the only clan card added to the league play. This thing is, and I hate this, Timberwolf V. It's a Mad Cat. I'm sorry, it's a Mad Cat. It might be a Mad Cat Timberwolf. It might be Timberwolf as its clan name. That's fine. But my problem here is that when I go and look for it and I want to compare it to the other Mad Cats, I have to search for Mad Cat and I get all of these. And then I have to do something to add them to maybe my deck. And then I have to go and search for Timberwolf. And there it is. And I don't know if it's a V or a 5. And sorry, I find that awkward. I just want it simple. I want to go and choose the mech I want. If Lucky does the search, can we call it a Mad Cat Timberwolf or put the clan names in? I don't know, but it's just a pain in the arse, and it doesn't need to be. And I've seen that come from, and this is going to sound really wrong. I've seen this come from board game players or the tabletop players. Oh, it's called a fire moth. No, it's in the card game. It's called a dasher. You can call it what you want when it's on your little hexy table with your little whatsits. But in the card game, it's a dasher. It's a dasher or it's a dasher fire moth, in my opinion. And I'll say this here and now. I'm not a board game player. I've played the board game or the tabletop game 2 or 3 times, courtesy of a guy called Neil Rawlins, who's got a lot to answer for. He's also the guy that got me into the card game. I played the card game. That's it. Okay. So the difference, or from what I can see, the commonality between the tabletop game and the card game is the name, the universe, i.e. Battletech, Periphery, clans, Inner Sphere, all that stuff, and dice. After that, they're different games for me. So, sorry, end rant, end rant. I just wish it was consistent, and therefore, from that point of view, my life is straightforward. I have enough crap and hassle with life that sitting down and playing a few games is one of my few enjoyments. And what I don't want to be doing is stress myself out when I'm doing that. It defeats the point. So anyway, uh, enough of that. So this Mad Cat 5V, whatever it is legal. It's a straight 10 cost, which okay, that's nice. It's 2/9 like all the other Mad Cats. Good. 5 damage. Okay, that's not bad. Overheat 4+4, long range 2, AP 2. So you could, if it goes against the stockpile on its own, get 5, 9, 11 out of it. So you get an 11 for a 10 cost card. Okay. And it's a medium. It seems a real bargain. It seems a real bargain compared to some of the other things in its class. If you compare it to the other Mad Cats, it's arguably undercosted by probably 2 to 3 points, or two in some buyouts. So the thought here is good old Aletha, who prevents 3 damage on fast and medium mechs, on this Timberwolf, so that it can overheat. Now the crazy thing, and this is why it's a card game and not a board game, sorry, tabletop game, whatever it's called. The overheat damage is bounced by the armor. Okay, it's a simulation. It's a card representation of that particular universe. So putting a Letha on there, it can overheat and not take any damage at all. So that's a nice combination. You put Bjorn on there, it's going to do 10 plus another 4 plus another 2. You could get 16 out of it. My recommendation or my thought is at the moment I would go with 4 of the Mad Cat stroke timber thingies. Okay, but because of that, my unopposed isn't quite as effective. It's only getting 5 out of that because it's base damage. So if I went with the Mad Cat, I'd probably drop an unopposed and put in another mission, maybe another risky combat jump. And that actually brings me on to the missions. Risky combat jump is an absolute classic in this type of deck because our Koshi's jump, our Hankies jump, our Dragonflies jump. In fact, you could even say the Gladiator jumps, which is a good reason to include it, and all the Nightgyre. Okay, the Mad Cat doesn't. Maybe that's a reason to pick one of the other ones and put another risky in. Forge mission order in order to get through. Remember that Aletha gives us +1 on the initiative, and the mechs have jump. So if I attack, he blocks, I jump, forge mission the mech out of the way, then I smack an unopposed, and because I can play 2 missions. That works reasonably well. Now, the trick, if you remember in the previous deck, we talked about heroic sacrifice being the way to finish off the game. This is the one for this. This is the one for this deck, and it's arguably a card that's not played very often, but I think here it's got some real merit. So it's reassigned pilot. There's only one of them, and the great thing with this mission is it always works. The die roll is whether it goes back in your hand. So if you've got a situation where you've probably got Bjorn sat on something, maybe you're going for the Timberwolf thing, or you've got him sat on a Hanky Prime because it can't get attacked, and he's got 1 blocker and you've got 2 mechs. Say you've got a Dasher, say you've got a Hanky. You attack with the Dasher. He thinks, oh, Bjorn's on the Hanky, so I'm going to sit and wait for that because that's got a big fat +5. So you attack with the Dasher, you play reassigned pilot, you move Bjorn to the Dasher, and you smack the stockpile straight off. And he's thinking, where did that come from? So it's the coup de grace, it's the finishing move. And again, you can move Aletha. Maybe it's a little cheeky. Maybe we should have another pilot or 2 in here. Maybe you could drop an unopposed, put one of your soul harmers in there. Maybe if you're playing risky combat jump, you go for a star commander so you can re-roll it. Maybe you take an unopposed out and put another risky in. Maybe you tweak your mech mix. It's down to you, Ian. They're all there. It's all there. You've got the decks. You can play around and do what you want with it. But I certainly think that with a double overtime into a Timberwolf, I mean that could be like turn 4 or 5. You could be putting that on the table, and at that point in the game where okay he's got a Fenris Prime or he's got a couple of Night Skies or a couple of Centurions, and you put that monster on the table, it probably scare the bejesus out of a lot of people, and it's not going to be an easy thing to handle at 2-9. You're not going to be able to just go and kill it. You're going to have to come up with some sort of strategy and something better on it. So that's my advice. That's my improvement. You'll see that there are a lot more resources in there, and there's a lot more synergy. Hopefully, that you'll feel that the deck is a lot more focused on doing one or two things, or maybe two or three things really well, instead of trying to be the Leatherman stroke Swiss Army knife and trying to do with everything. The dealing with everything comes into your sideboard, which is where you swap cards in and out after each match, and that's where you do your tweak. Arguably, that's why the think tanks are still in the deck, because one of the things that's going to hurt this is something like Rocky Gorge or some of those terrains. So with a think tank in the deck, you can sack that for politics and take the buyout out of your creative terraforming if you choose to sideboard it. Or you can always sack them for logistics and restock a card that you didn't want if you don't feed it to the black market monster, or you don't get your improved construction facilities on the table. So there's hopefully there's some ideas there for you. You can improve that, look at that, take it, make it your own. This is just my take on it. I hope that you feel that there's more synergy with it and it's stronger because it's focused. But make it your own. Turn it into what you want to do with it. There are some cards that could easily drop out of there. You could drop reassigned pilot easily. You could drop unopposed easily. You could put single combat in the sideboard. You could tweak your big mech choices, etc., etc. And you can turn it into what works for you. And that's the thing. You've got your own play style. You know what you'll be going through. You know how you play. Some of those things mightn't work for you, but they do work for me, which is that's part of the design and how you play. So what I say is go play, go and enjoy them, go and look at them. Don't just take everything I've said as gospel. Think, you know what he said, move that out, and actually I'm going to do that. That works for me. Turn it into what you want, and go and have some fun and play it, and let us know. Feed us back. Is it more reliable? Are you more happier with it? Do you feel that it's better? Where are your problems? Do I struggle against certain deck types, or do I struggle doing a certain or with a certain aspect of the game because the deck doesn't deal with that? Let us know, and we'll have another look at it. We'll tweak it. We'll say what the problem is, and we'll look at it and try and do that in a positive and improving light that supports you and enthuses you to play the game. Uh, I don't think there's anything that I've said is overly rocket science. I think personally there's a couple of nice little ideas and tricks in there, and it's just come from experience and having built a lot of these. So don't beat yourself up about the first bit. I think there are a few nice touches in there. Go and enjoy it. Go and play with it, and enjoy the game for what it is. Okay, what have we got here? You like the Night Jaya Prime in there? Okay, fine, go for it. Thanks for the advice. Definitely taking it to heart. Got to roll out. Okay, mate. You look after yourself. Stay safe. Look after and everything else. For those of you watching, the notes from last week are in there, and also there's a link to the Facebook group and a few other things that I've got the automatic night bot to do. when I get a bit more time, I'm hoping to do a few more things with that, and maybe with the stream. Let me stop flashing over these cards and spamming you with, the equivalent of strobe light effects. Tweak the audio, tweak the opening screen, maybe get something on there where I can sit and have someone else involved, maybe get Gus in or Michael or Travis or something like that and talk about a few things. And again, as ever, if there's anything that you want me to talk about or discuss or throw your way or feedback on or whatever else, hit me up here, hit me up on Facebook, drop me a message, whatever else. More than happy to try and do things that people will appreciate and enjoy and value than randomly just sitting here and playing some computer game that no one's interested in or doesn't really have an effect. So that's me, and in the words as ever of Pump Up the Volume, I'm done. Stick a fork in me. Take care, everybody. Look after yourselves. It's a cruel, cruel world out there. Don't get eaten up. And hopefully, I'll catch you on another day for another stream. And I'll see you soon.